When we talk about relationships, particularly the ways we evaluate potential partners, there's a troubling habit society has carried for generations. This idea that you can look at a woman and somehow read her past, especially her sexual history. People pass around myths disguised as wisdom, claiming there are hidden signs or subtle cues that reveal how many partners a woman has been with. And the truth is, none of that is grounded in psychology, biology, or even common sense. It's simply a reflection of long-standing biases often used to shame or diminish women rather than understand them. What's more dangerous is that many people repeat these ideas without ever examining where they come from or why they persist. If you look closely, these assumptions are really projections of insecurity, fear of inadequacy, or discomfort with vulnerability. It is far easier to cling to a myth than to face the real complexity of human relationships. And that's something we must challenge. Because when you judge someone based on a narrative that was never theirs to begin with, you rob yourself of the opportunity to know who they truly are. You miss the beauty of their lived experience, the lessons they've gathered, the depth they carry, and the perspective they bring. What we must understand is that there is nothing psychologically revealing about a woman's appearance, demeanor, or energy that tells you how many people she has slept with. Experience does not leave physical marks, nor does it shape a woman into a stereotype. Human beings are far more nuanced than that. People evolve through emotions, not numbers, through growth, not rumors, through self-awareness, not scrutiny. And there's something empowering in recognizing this. When you release yourself from myths, you open yourself up to truth. You begin to see that what really matters in a relationship is not someone's past, but their present, how they communicate, how they show up, how they care, how they take responsibility for their actions, and how they navigate conflict. These are the genuine indicators of compatibility and emotional maturity, not gossip, not assumptions, not outdated notions of purity or worth. When we choose to challenge these myths, we also choose to elevate our relationships. We create more space for trust, empathy, and clarity. We give ourselves permission to connect on a level that is real, grounded, and free from the distortion society has handed us. And that kind of connection, honest, intentional, barrier-free, is where love has room to grow. So the next time the world tries to sell you a narrative about what a woman's past supposedly says about her, pause. Step back. Ask yourself whether you're listening to truth or tradition, whether you're responding from wisdom or insecurity, because the quality of your relationships will always reflect the quality of your perspective. And here is the truth worth carrying forward. The only story worth judging is the one a person is living right now, not the one someone else invented for them. When we move past the myths and the noise, what we're really left with are the deeper, more truthful indicators of who someone is, not based on their past partners, but on the emotional patterns that shape the way they love, communicate, and connect. And this is where the real substance lies. Because emotional experience reveals far more about a person than any guesswork about their history ever could. When you pay attention to how someone handles conflict, you begin to understand their relationship with vulnerability. Do they shut down or do they lean in? Do they become defensive or do they try to understand? These patterns form long before you meet them, through childhood dynamics, past emotional wounds, and the personal lessons they've carried into adulthood. Psychology teaches us that attachment styles, not sexual history, are what shape relationship behavior. An understanding that gives you a far more accurate picture of someone's emotional landscape. There is something profoundly revealing about a person's communication style. Emotional maturity is not about always being calm or always having the right words. It's about self-awareness. It's about being able to say, "This hurt me," or "I didn't handle that well," or even, "I need a moment to understand what I'm feeling." People who have done the inner work communicate with clarity because they've learned to understand themselves first. They don't hide behind pride or ego. They don't weaponize silence or distance. They show up with honesty, not perfection. And that, more than anything else, tells you who they are. And the beauty of this is that emotional experience is not something that can be faked, not for long. You can't mask an insecure attachment with charm. You can't disguise emotional avoidance by playing confident. Eventually, the truth of someone's emotional capacity finds its way to the surface. This is why paying attention to the subtle, consistent behaviors is far more important than entertaining superficial assumptions. When someone has learned from life, truly learned, they carry themselves with a kind of steadiness. They don't fear depth because they've been there. They don't run from accountability because they understand its power. And they don't get intimidated by emotional intimacy because they've realized that closeness is not a threat but a doorway to connection. These are the real signs of experience, not sexual experience, but emotional evolution. And we must also acknowledge that emotional experience doesn't always mean someone had a difficult past. Sometimes it simply means they've taken the time to reflect, to grow, to become aware of the patterns they no longer want to repeat. That's where wisdom comes from, not from what happened, but from what was learned. So when you're trying to understand someone, truly understand them, look at the way they love, not the stories you've been conditioned to imagine. Look at the way they listen, the way they apologize, the way they take responsibility, and the way they allow themselves to be open. because in the end, the depth of a person's emotional experience is the clearest window into their capacity for love. And here is the reminder worth carrying forward: emotional maturity, not speculation, reveals the truth that actually matters. When we shift the conversation away from assumptions about a woman's past and toward what truly matters, something powerful happens. We begin to see people through the lens of who they are, not who we imagine them to be. And that shift, simple as it sounds, is transformative. Because the moment you stop trying to decode someone using false signals and start paying attention to their values, you step into a deeper, more authentic understanding of them. Values are the inner compass that guide a person's choices. They tell you far more than a list of past experiences ever could. What does she believe in? How does she treat people? How does she handle responsibility? How does she honor her own boundaries and respect yours? These questions reveal the core of her character. They reveal the principles she lives by and the standards she holds for herself. And that is where truth lies, not in rumors or assumptions, but in the choices she makes every day. When you focus on values, you begin to see the difference between someone who is simply charming and someone who is grounded. Charm can entertain you, but values sustain you. It's easy to be captivated by chemistry, but long-term compatibility comes from shared beliefs about what matters: commitment, kindness, honesty, loyalty, discipline, integrity. These are the qualities that build the foundation of a lasting relationship, and none of them can be measured by the weight of a person's past. You also begin to understand what shapes her decisions, why she moves the way she does, why she sets certain boundaries, why she walks away from certain situations. Values shape behavior in ways that history never could. A woman who values growth will seek communication. A woman who values peace will avoid unnecessary conflict. A woman who values respect will never entertain someone who diminishes her. These are not signs of her past, they are signs of her self-awareness. And here's something important: when you become curious about someone's values instead of their history, you open the door to deeper conversations. You create space for honesty and vulnerability. Instead of interrogating her about what she's done, you ask her what she believes. Instead of judging her choices, you ask her how those choices shaped her. And instead of trying to uncover the past, you explore the future, what she envisions, what she hopes for, what she's building. This kind of curiosity is not intrusive, it is connective. It tells the other person, I want to understand you, not the narrative the world has placed on you. And that is the beginning of trust. Not the kind of trust that is demanded or forced, but the kind that grows naturally when two people meet each other with openness and sincerity. Because the truth is, when you focus on values, you learn who someone truly is and who they are becoming. You learn what they stand for, what they will fight for, and what they will never compromise. And if you listen closely enough, you learn whether your values align with theirs. And that alignment, more than anything else, determines the strength of the connection. So here is the truth worth holding on to: who someone is today, their values, their choices, their character, is far more revealing than the past you were never meant to judge. When we finally move into the space of real connection, trust becomes the center of everything. And trust is not something you stumble into. It is something you build deliberately through conversation that is open, kind, and grounded in respect. One of the greatest misunderstandings in relationships is the belief that you can create closeness by demanding answers, by digging for information, or by interrogating someone about their past. But closeness doesn't grow in the presence of fear. It grows where there is safety, and safety is built through communication that does not judge, does not assume, and does not shame. When you approach someone with curiosity instead of suspicion, you tell them that their truth is welcome, that they don't need to hide parts of themselves to be accepted, that they don't need to shape their story in a way that fits someone else's expectations. This kind of openness creates a space where honesty can breathe. And that is powerful, because when someone feels free to be honest with you, not because they are scared, but because they are seen, that's when you encounter who they really are. Healthy communication is not about extracting information. It's about exchanging understanding. It's not about asking, what did you do? But rather, how did that shape you? It's not about questioning someone's worth based on their past, but exploring their journey, their lessons, their growth. When you speak from a place of respect, when you listen without forming a verdict, you give the other person permission to show up authentically. And authenticity is the soil from which all meaningful connection grows. And here's the truth: people open up when they feel safe, not when they feel pressured. The moment you create an environment where the other person feels like they are being measured or evaluated, they shut down, they retreat, they tell you only what they think you want to hear. But when you show them that you value their humanity over your assumptions, they offer you the parts of themselves that matter: their dreams, their fears, their intentions, their values. Trust is built in moments of genuine listening, in letting someone finish their thought, in asking questions that clarify, not accuse, in offering understanding instead of judgment, in saying, I want to know you, not test you. When communication is rooted in compassion, it creates a bond that is stronger than any insecurity you might have walked in with. And perhaps most importantly, trust grows when both people show up with honesty. Honesty about what they need, what they expect, what they're afraid of, and what they're willing to work on. There is a courage in being transparent. It requires a kind of internal strength that says, I am not perfect, but I am willing. That willingness becomes the thread that holds a relationship together through uncertainty and through growth. So when you're building a connection with someone, don't let suspicion guide you. Don't let insecurity speak for you. Instead, let your curiosity be rooted in care, and let your communication invite truth instead of fear. Because the relationships that last are the ones built not on interrogation, but on understanding. And remember this, the trust you build through honesty and compassion will reveal truths far deeper than anything fear could ever uncover.